In this video, I'm going to be reviewing the Mokwheel Obsidian ST 2.0, which is Mokwheel's step-through fat tire e-bike that's made to conquer any terrain, no matter where your adventure takes you. I'm going to go over the build and features of this bike, and do an acceleration test, a hill climb test, a top speed test, a braking test, and a test on how this bike rides both on the road and the dirt. So let's get to it. So before I get into the testing and how the Obsidian ST 2.0 actually rides, I first want to talk about the build and the features of this bike. So first is the motor, which is a 750 watt rear hub motor that has a continued output of 1000 watts and a peak output of 1300 watts. And it puts out a mind-boggling 105 newton meters of torque. And since this bike has such a big motor, it requires a really big battery to run it, which it does have with its 48 volt, 19.6 amp hour lithium ion battery that's UL certified and gets up to 80 miles of range when using pedal assist. The drivetrain is a 10-speed Shimano Qs, and to deal with chain slap, Mokwheel's also included a rubber chainstay protector. And for additional comfort, the Obsidian ST 2.0 comes with a front fork with 130 millimeters of travel and a D&M air shock with adjustable rebound and a lockout switch. And one feature I love about the suspension is that all the pivots have the torque specs on them so that you can ensure your pivots are never too loose or tight. The brakes are Tektro hydraulic disc brakes with 180 millimeter rotors both in the front and in the rear. The display is a very pretty LCD screen that shows a ton of information and allows you to make a ton of adjustments in the menus. But by far the best feature is that it's removable, making it so if someone were to actually steal the bike, they can't actually use it as an e-bike. And what's also really cool is the seat post is actually a dropper post. But to keep it simple, you activate it by pressing the lever under the saddle. And the last cool feature is that the Obsidian ST 2.0 is compatible with Mokwheel's inverter, which you connect to the bike, and the bike's battery can be used to power the inverter to use with your electronics. So now that we've looked at the build and some of the features, let's go ride it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to test out the speedometer accuracy. We're going to do it from 3 speeds. The first speed is 10 miles per hour, which the bike shows 10.1 against my GPS app, which shows 9 miles per hour, so it's a tiny bit off. Okay, so the next speed we're going to test is 20 miles per hour, which is the class 2 top speed. Bike says 20.1 miles per hour, app says 19, once again off by 1 mile per hour. Okay, so one really cool feature is you can actually adjust the top speed, and I'm adjusting it to make it a class 3 bike. So we're doing 27 miles an hour. It's bouncing back between 27, 26, also off by 1 mile per hour. Okay, now we're doing the acceleration test using only the throttle. I'm going to go to 28 miles per hour. Let's see how it goes. Ready? And go. 10, 15, 20, 25, 28. So for the final results, the Obsidian ST 2.0 went 0 to 10 miles per hour in 3.2 seconds, 0 to 15 in 5 seconds, 0 to 20 in 7 seconds, to 25 in 12.2 seconds, and to 20 miles per hour in 20.2 seconds. So the Obsidian does have some grunt up to 20 miles per hour, then it seems to taper off. The motor feels like it's designed for a lot of torque, but not for blistering acceleration. Something to notice is that the motor intensity output can be increased by left in the stock setting for this test. Okay, so now we're going to check out the unlock top speed. Kind of like I was mentioning before in the acceleration video, you can actually adjust the top speed of the throttle inside the menu. So hold it down. We're going to go down to throttle speed. It's set at 20 from the factory. Let's just go to 40 miles per hour. Settings are good. All right, let's see what happens. Unlock top speed. All right. Good power, 20 miles an hour. Bike says 28, 29, 30. Bike says 30.5, 29 on the app. cars are coming, so just getting out of the way. I think it's safe to say the bike does about 29 to 30 miles per hour unlocked. Okay, next test is testing out the hill climbing ability using only the throttle. This is an 8 to 9% gradient. I mean, it's nothing for this bike. We're doing 23 miles an hour. This is 24. Okay, that was insanely easy. Let's do something a little bit steeper. Okay, next we're doing a throttle only hill climb test on a 15% gradient. We're doing 18 miles per hour up this hill. We are now hitting the steepest part, which is 15%. Just 15 miles per hour. Okay, cake. I mean, like nothing, 15%, using only the throttle. I'm 175 pounds. Last hill climb, 22% gradient. I'm gonna see how far I can go using only the throttle. 19 miles an hour. 15, 14, 12, 11 miles an hour. Oh, wow, okay. 11, 10. I was not expecting this. This bike, confirmed, can do a 22% gradient using only the throttle. Wow. That was amazing. Next was the braking test, which I wanted to do from 3 different speeds. First was stopping from 10 miles per hour, which the Obsidian did in an impressive 5 feet. Next was from 20 miles per hour, which is the factory throttle top speed and the class 2 limit, which the bike stopped in 17 feet. And last was from the class 3 top speed of 28 miles per hour, which the bike did in 33 feet. So overall, I was really impressed with the stopping power. The brakes are strong with minimal skidding and drama. So now we've tested the acceleration, braking, and hill climbing abilities, I tested what I consider the most important aspect of any bike, and that's the ride comfort. I'm first going to discuss how this bike rides in the street, which is where I think most people will be riding their Obsidian e-bikes. First is the power of the Obsidian, which to put it mildly is immense. While the bike moves pretty good with only the throttle, when you use the bike with pedal assist, the bike has so much power and torque that it kind of caught me off guard. The power band is strong, smooth, and linear. It just feels like there's a never-ending amount of torque that continues all the way up to the top speed. I really wasn't able to talk about in the hill climbing section because the bike was powerful enough to climb a 22% gradient with only the throttle. But when pedaling, I wouldn't be surprised if this bike could easily do a 30% climb like nothing. But having a lot of power doesn't necessarily mean it's user-friendly, and I think that's where Mokwheel really nailed the tuning of the power delivery. Even though there's a lot of torque, the Obsidian never feels intimidating. It has enough power to climb any hill with ease, but it also remains calm enough that riders of all skill levels can ride the bike. And the best part is that if you think the bike is too powerful, you can actually adjust the intensity level of the motor in the settings to lower the power output. The seating position is also really nice, and it's almost centered directly in the middle of the bike, so that the rider never feels a front or rear weight bias. The handlebars are riser bars, with a really good width that aren't too narrow or wide. Also, the step-through design allows for easy mounting and dismounting of the bike. And one really nice feature is the dropper post. It doesn't have a lot of drop on it, only about 60mm or so, but it's nice to have the option if you need to drop it for any reason. The 26-inch fat tires also do a really good job of muting out any small vibrations in the road, and anything that the tires miss, the front fork does a really good job as well, providing extra comfort. The D&M air shock also feels absolutely lovely on the road, with barely any pedal bob, and also love that it comes with a lockout feature and a rebound adjustment. So even though this bike is really comfortable on the pavement and it eats up miles with ease, what I was really curious about is how the bike handles the dirt, because let's be real, the Obsidian ST 2.0 is a fat tire bike with riser bars, a big fork, air shock, and even a dropper post, so it's meant to get dirty. So I've ridden a decent amount of fat tire e-bikes in my test loop, and most of them tend to get overwhelmed in the rocks, since the suspension on most of them aren't adjustable. And this is where the Mokwheel has a massive advantage over the competition at this price point, specifically with the rear shock. So the fork does work really well, with decent dampening and comfort, but it is limited on its adjustments, so I can never get the rebound to my liking while going over chunky rock sections. On normal trails, the fork does work really good, but with a lot of rocks, it does get a little overwhelmed. But the star was the rear air shock with its infinite adjustability and lockout switch. This shock really gave the rear end a smooth and compliant ride and really delight to ride in the dirt. And since this bike has massive fat tires, it can monster truck over rocks and big obstacles pretty easily, but it comes at the cost of agility, which I think is a good trade-off. And while the bike can easily pedal up steep hills, having all that power does come with a small caveat. The bike almost has too much power up tight technical trails. I noticed that when going up some of the tighter paths with a lot of rocks and obstacles, it was a little hard to control the bike with its massive power. It's still manageable, and I'm sure having to hold the camera while filming didn't help, but just something I wanted to mention. But as a whole, the bike performed great in the dirt, and has a much smoother, more compliant ride than any fat tire e-bike that I've tested at this price point. Overall, I was blown away by the features, build, and overall quality of the Obsidian ST 2.0. The bike feels premium, and I love that Mokwheel actually built a fat tire e-bike with almost no compromises. The motor has an insane amount of torque, especially when using pedal assist. There's a lot of power, and it provides a lot of grunt, and it's really easy to climb most hills with ease. And since the power is smooth and linear, it never feels peaky, and it keeps the output manageable to almost all riders. The suspension is also really well tuned and keeps the bike ridiculously comfortable. The front fork really shines on the road and on basic dirt roads and trails, but like I mentioned in the dirt section of the ride comfort test, it does get slightly overwhelmed in super rocky sections. By far, the highlight is the D&M Air Shock, with its limitless adjustability and smooth ride. It's dampened extremely well and surprised me with how compliant it is. Something I never really got to go in depth about inside the review were the brakes, which I thought were fantastic. Tektro are really good brakes that unfortunately get overshadowed at this price point by Shimano and SRAM brakes. But in my opinion, at this lower price point, they're actually superior to Shimano with much better brake feel and power. And since these brakes are from a reputable company, finding parts and replacement pads is super easy. And the last thing I want to discuss is the drivetrain, which is the Shimano 10-speed Q's drivetrain with Shimano's Link Glide system, which provides insanely smooth and reliable shifting. So many e-bike manufacturers tend to put 7-speed drivetrains at this point, which I'm not a fan of. So I'm really happy and relieved that Mokwheel actually put a good drivetrain that's easy to tune, repair, and is extremely reliable. So as a whole, the Obsidian ST 2.0 has far exceeded my expectations. I really like the build, and there's no bad components on the bike. The motor, drivetrain, suspension, seat pose, brakes, and all the touch points feel premium for this price point. And discussing the price point, this is not a cheap bike, coming in at $2,400 for the black or blue colors and $2,500 for the camo color. And while this is a lot of money, you do get what you pay for. This feels like a bike that was designed to last years of ownership, and I think if you're in the market for a fat tire electric bike, you should definitely give the Obsidian ST 2.0 a serious consideration. But if you have any questions or have a Mokwheel bike want to share your experiences, please leave them in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great one.